Hi, welcome to AGodvlog. My name is Scott Elliott. I'm the pastor here at First Congregational United Church of Christ right here in Mount Vernon, Ohio. And each week that we have not had in-person worship during the COVID pandemic, I've provided one of these midweek vlogs, tried to. And since we hope to start in-person worship right here in this beautiful space on September 13th, this may be my last midweek vlog for a while, so I thought I'd talk about the one thing everyone expects most Christian pastors to talk about: sin. And before you click away over that topic, hang on, this is not only a short vlog, it's also not a hellfire and brimstone vlog. You might find this interesting. I know sin can be one of those buzzwords that kills the conversation, but you might be surprised to learn sin is not what those hellfire and brimstone folks tell you. You don't have to understand it their way, and it's legitimate not to. The word sin comes from an archery term for missing the marks. It means to miss the mark God aims us at. And we all miss that mark now and then. We all sin in that respect. And as the church was forming, the Apostle Paul and early church leaders wrestled with concepts around sin. Now, a part of the theology that developed was an understanding the story of the Garden of Eden to be about humans being made in the image of God, but falling from perfection by sinning. The mark God aimed Adam at that he missed was obedience. Adam disobeyed God. He sinned, and so in the story, Adam fell out of the Garden of Eden, out of grace. That's what some of the early Christian theologians argue and caught on. That disobedience was understood by Paul and the church fathers as a story of how all humanity was separated from God. Humans were made in the image of God, but they became tarnished. The image of God in humans became tarnished. Adam and Eve were made in the image of God and are still images of God, but to sort of borrow one of Paul's other metaphors, we are a dim reflection. And the bottom line is that Paul and some of the early fathers understood humankind as falling from grace because Adam first did. But they saw the Jesus story as being the opposite of Adam's story. Jesus fixed the problem for all humanity. Where Adam was disobedient, Jesus was obedient. Where Adam's story is about fall from grace affecting all of humanity, Jesus' story is about restoration of grace for all humanity. Jesus' life and sacrificial death resulted in an atonement, a theological word that means at oneness, atonement. Humans were restored to oneness with God because of what Jesus did. All humanity, all of us. That's Paul's theology. And he thought it was true regardless of what we believe or don't believe. You heard me right. Paul thought Jesus restored all of humanity's oneness with God regardless of what we believe or don't believe. That may not be what we were taught in Sunday school. That is certainly not what accept Jesus or go to hell means. It's not what we often hear from hellfire and brimstone preaching, but it is Christianity 101 going back to the Apostle Paul. Grace is free and for all because of what Jesus did. This Christian theology does not picture us tossed into, say, a sea, needing to get onto the lifeboat of Christianity, or we drown in sin. Rather, it pictures us already plucked out of the sea and in the lifeboat, saved already from drowning in the sea of sin. You will be saved, many modern Christians insist, makes the path of Christianity exclusive. Accept Jesus or go to hell. That may be there too. Paul had a different take. Paul, the apostle, understood Christ as God on earth for everyone and generous to everyone. God's thing was that God's grace is free and it's ours whether we want it or not. In other words, Adam's disobedience was raised by Jesus' obedience, and so all humanity is rescued from the sin's sea of cosmic trouble. We are in that lifeboat out of hot water, if you will. If we need to have hell in the equation, salvation is about keeping hell out of life, out of that lifeboat, and about bringing heaven to life, to that lifeboat, and not afterlife, but now, here, during our lives as we live. If that sounds loving, unconditionally, it's because Christianity started out to be about love, all about love, God's love. God's love, the psalmist tells us over and over again, is steadfast, and it endures forever. Anything we may hear or think is unloving in Christianity is not from God. It's not from Christ. It is from sinful people constructing religion in ways that miss the mark God aims us at. And if you haven't guessed it by now, that mark is love. Love of God and self and others. And you don't have to believe me. Jesus told us there's no greater commandment than to love God and to love others as you love yourself, right? And sin is when we don't love one or more of those three things, God, others, self, when we don't do it in the lifeboat that we share on the sea of life with everyone. Well, thank you for joining me. My name is Scott Elliott. Please go in peace, knowing that you are loved and that you matter much. And think about joining us on September 13th for our first in-person worship service since the COVID crisis began.